All right, all right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. So we're glad you're on, and Coach threw me a curveball. She was just telling everybody. She said, we had a word for today, and then she just wanted to go in a different direction, and I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Now, once I got the word and I dove into it, I felt like I ran a marathon uh, by this call this morning because I was all over the place. The word was narrative, narrative. Okay. Now, from the outside, you go, well, I know what that is. I mean, come on. But if you really dive into it and you really think about yourself and where you're at right now in life, it could spin you in a couple of different directions. So I challenge you to do that. Listen to us, but then take the time to look at the word narrative today of how it represents you, like what it means to you. If you look at it, there's a couple of definitions out there, but I like to look at one that says a story or an account of something that has happened. Okay. Now, I kind of cross-reference narrative and story because you think about story when you think about narrative, right? You agree with me? But really, the difference between narrative and story is narrative, if you think about it, it's where you kind of take your story and you can reshuffle it like a deck of cards. You can kind of reshuffle it and then put it out there to tell a story, okay? So it could be all true, but it could all have different meanings, right? Does that make sense? So, I think about the first thing that came to my mind was I'm in an industry that we tell stories. We talk about our transformation. We talk about what's happened to us. We talk about what the products are doing. We talk about financially what's impacting our life, with this, as Coach Myra says, a side hustle. And so for a lot of times I've told people, and I've heard this for years from my mentor, stories sell to people and facts just tell. It's just kind of like facts are just blah, and stories are what actually sells. It's what people buy into. I got thinking about that this morning, and I thought, man, I was a coach. My kids loved for me to tell stories. They didn't want to hear that plays were boring, like the how-to and all the facts and the 45-degree angle and the 6-foot-inch step. Like all of that was kind of boring. But they really got caught up when I told a story about myself playing football and what had happened to me and about getting sick on the field and all that. And they would just be engrossed in my story. And I thought, back to narrative. I think about E60. How many of you watched E60, like ESPN, or maybe 30 for 30? When people love stories about people. But then Coach, I went in a different direction as I was writing down, man. I was writing a book. And then I come across some things that I wrote down. And I said, some of the most important leaders in our lives have said, no story lives unless someone wants to listen. Think about that. There is no friend as loyal as a great book that's telling you a story. You're never going to kill storytelling because it's built in the human plan. Okay? Now, when I wrote this down and you're going, Brent, you're all over the place. Okay. So it sent me in a different direction. And I thought, we all, Steve, Tammy, Dwight, we all tell a narrative to ourselves between our two ears. Okay? The story you tell yourself could be positive or it could be negative. I've had both in my life, and I'm going to be vulnerable as I end today. See, what we tell ourselves, the narrative we tell ourselves between our two ears, it turns into what you believe, and what you believe manifests in every aspect of your life. So I'm going to give you an example of a positive. I'm a coach. I tell myself I'm a coach. Now, some people would say, probably I'm a bad coach, but I'm going with this. I'm a coach. I want it on my tombstone one day, Coach Palmer. I tell myself that. And I really believe by telling myself that, I build stronger relationships. Would you agree, Susan and Bill? You know me better today than you knew me 10 years ago. I believe by telling myself I'm a coach, I help people achieve more. I believe I help give vision to people because I tell myself that. I believe I got your back. If you're my person, if you're my tribe, if you're my team, I got your back because I'm your coach. I believe I help people believe in themselves more. And I believe I help people overcome fear. Scared to do something. I got you back. I'll get you through it. Now I'm talking about myself. I'm putting myself out there. And that's kind of not fun when you're thinking about the positive side. It feels like you're bragging on yourself. But I tell myself that. I'm a coach. But I want to tell you something negative. Negative narrative that I tell myself between my two ears. That's just my luck. That's just my luck. No good deed goes unpunished. Have you ever heard that? I've told myself that before. I've given somebody something and I've went, and then they've done something to me. I went, well, that's perfect. No good deed goes unpunished. That's just my luck. I'm being vulnerable to you, but that has come out of my thoughts and it's came out of my mouth. What negative, toxic narrative am I putting in between my two ears? Now, you don't have to raise your hand, but how many of you have something you could think about that's negative and toxic, a narrative that you're telling yourself? It's manifesting. And if we're not careful, it will limit our vision. It'll limit our vision. It'll limit our options. And it'll blind ourselves from the positives around us. Now, that's my thought today for narrative. And I guess for me, it's kind of, Coach always said, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Well, narrative to me is something that I need to check myself between my two ears. And I need to make sure I'm putting that positive, I'm a coach narrative between those two ears. And when that negative tries to creep in, I better knock it back out. Coach, I'll turn it to you.
All right. I got some news for you, Coach Palmer. You're not a good coach. You're a fantastic coach. You are a fantastic coach. Thank you for your message. Narrative, yeah, like you said, we kind of went with one word last night. I really thought, and I couldn't. But narrative is something that I learned another thing about myself, and I learned from, again, I talk about reading all the time. I talk about watching TED Talks. You know, I challenge you to do that. Dig into these unbelievable sources. But as I finally got to the point of narrative, it said it's a story or account of events. It can be true or fictitious. The story told is usually told in great detail. Well, of course, I have a story for you. I don't really consider myself a storyteller, but I always, as Coach said, in coaching, I always love to hear the stories. I always try to learn from my mentors, which I'm going to pull in today in my message to you about mentors, but to share with my kids in my program. Even in parent meetings, it just sticks better. A story sticks with us. We always can find value in it. You know, there's a lot of research done on why families stay together, that people have dug in. And the children that have been level in most family situations are children that grew up hearing stories, whether they were good, whether they were bad, but they were just stories within the family and the household. So it helped them in dealing as they got older with just life and stress in general. You know, and one of the things as I prepared this morning is it talked about mentors. You know, there are some areas in your life that are key in helping us write our own personal narrative. And one of them is we have to find our mentors. Like, you know, I'm not a spring chicken anymore. In my mind, I'm still 30 or 35, but I'm always looking for a new way to learn. You know, do I think that you guys are mentors to me? Absolutely. Brent Palmer's one of my greatest mentors, and he's younger than me. You know, people think in their mind that mentors have to be older. That is so not true. You know, your own personal narrative has been helped along the way by these mentors. This mentor can be of any color, any religion. I even heard that it can even be some kind of a character that you grew up reading about, that it's in a fiction thing. So it can be teachers, it can be religious leaders, it can be coaches. But I think the thing that probably stuck with me the most is a story that I read about a young man named Tim, and then we're naming him Tim, and then we're going to talk about the other guy, the young man, we're going to call him John. Well, Tim had tons of social challenges. He was just quite honestly, he was just a misfit. Whereas John was raised up in a really solid foundation. So his personal narrative was being developed at home solidly with his family, his, you know, all of his relatives, everything around him. Well, his mom, John was out with his mom one day, and she said, you know, John, one of the toughest decisions that you're going to make in your life is going to be, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? That's going to be your toughest decision in your life. What am I going to do? Whereas Tim, he wakes up every single morning looking for a place to go where he feels inadequate, and that's his comfort zone. So he's going into that area. He's struggling. Society continues to put bricks in his already heavy backpack. But fortunately, what mom was teaching John was about how society keeps hammering it on. She was actually teaching him about inequality. You know, it's what's going on in the world. A lot of people, a lot of us have things stacked against us. But our personal narrative either is going to make us or break us. You know, where you've inherited this stack against you, you have to keep going on and on. And most, like Tim, keep on keeping on. You know, every time that we're faced with making a new decision, young or old, every single time that we're faced with making this new decision, we have to go back and we think of the core things that happen to us, good or bad. Do we connect as we go into a new decision we're trying to make? Do we connect to what was in our core from our raising and our background? And if we do, we need to connect to it, guys, because that's our source of strength. Through our life, we have overcome things and we need to connect with it. So my challenge and my question to you today is, how will you use the power of your own personal narrative to accomplish things that no one else can? How will you use that power of your own individual personal narrative to take that step? Think long and hard about that. Long and hard. I challenge you to do that. And I also challenge you to get out. And I see some of you are out enjoying the beautiful weather already. But everybody just have a great day and think about, what's your personal narrative?
Coach, thank you so much. And you're one of my greatest mentors. I'll tell you that. And Michelle Blanchard, I see you with those horses.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy your morning. Guys, this was a great word. I challenge you to really look at it today. You know, as you kind of go through your day, just think about it. Think about what you're telling yourself, because that was a strong word to me. I didn't think it was going to be, but it was great. So thank you for spending your Wednesday morning kicking off with us. And hopefully this added value to you. I know it did me. So happy Wednesday. Find somebody, make them have a better day because you showed up. And we will see you back tomorrow, good Lord willing. Have a great day. See you.
Bye, guys.